Hi there, all you cool cats and kittens. I had to Carol Baskin you at some point. I knew it was going to happen. When I first heard her say that, I was like, oh, that sounds like one of the names I use. What was I going to say? So today, obviously, as you can see from the title, it's a housework ramble, darlings. I've got a lot of laundry that I need to be sorting out. I've got clean clothes. I've got clothes that I took on a trip to my mum's that need to go in the wash. I've got things to fold. I've got things to put into piles. So I'm going to talk at you a little bit while I do that. And I want to thank the person who left a comment underneath one of my previous videos asking me for a resource on my communication anxiety, because they left that comment. A few other people liked it, and I thought, you know, I think it would be good to put some sort of a resource together and talk about that a bit. So thank you for the video request, and here is the result. I love this jumper. Oh, it's so beautiful. This is not my shirt. This is clean and it needs to go back to the person to whom it belongs. So let me just fold it up a bit. There we go. Lovely jubbly. Sometimes we do borrow each other's clothes in life, don't we? So let me talk a little bit about my communication anxiety. First things first, I want to be completely clear, my darlings, for the record, I am not diagnosed with communication anxiety. This is not something that I went to a doctor and they actually sort of told me what I was experiencing and officially stated that that's what I was experiencing. So however much weight and emphasis you place onto that, if you want to click away now because you don't think that I should be talking about this, or that what I will say will hold any weight, absolutely fine. I'm not upset about that. But for me, it just seems pretty self-evident that what I have is communication anxiety. I just don't even see the point in bothering a doctor about it, because I know that although it's not diagnosed, clearly that's what's happening. I feel anxiety and it's around communication. So that's how that goes. Lots of people that have social anxiety or social phobia struggle with communication anxiety as a part of that. Actually, this is my laundry basket bag thing. What am I doing? No, let me put that over there. So I wouldn't say that what I have is social anxiety in any way. It's specifically related to certain forms of communication in my case. And the way it happens, darlings, is that it comes as a form of resistance. So I will receive a piece of digital communication, something on WhatsApp, something via email, something on social media, whatever it might be. And I basically immediately feel a resistance to it. And then the resistance piles up, it gets out of hand. There can be several people that I haven't replied to. And usually this is social. It doesn't tend to be professional, although it can bleed into my professional life. But essentially, I end up having a few different communication tasks, if you will, to respond to or deal with. And then that just makes the effort feel gargantuan. The resistance builds up. It starts with one thing, then it's a handful of things. Then I start to feel like I've really failed in a number of ways to be present or consistent in communication. And that feeds into the anxiety about replying and the anxiety about not replying. So I'm stuck in this middle spot, basically. For me, in-person communication doesn't involve this kind of resistance. I don't feel super resistant to engaging in social activities. In fact, of course, like a lot of people, I feel kind of that I've been obviously very starved of social activity. So it's kind of exciting. However, it has brought its own anticipation and its flutters of anxiety coming up. And I know that's true for a lot of people as we're coming to the side of the pandemic where social activity is more normalized again and we can mix. I know that a lot of my friends and myself were very anxious when we went on our first outdoor social gathering together at the beginning of May. I spoke to quite a few of my friends about the anxiety that had built up inside of me as the result of not socialising for so long. I love this t-shirt so much. I love baddies. And then it's got the Riddler on the back in a heart. Come on, I mean, who doesn't love that? If you don't love that, just unsubscribe. Just leave me alone. That's a joke. Yeah, So I spoke to a few of my friends about that. I know that that's normal to feel that. But in terms of just generally, I don't have social anxiety. It's specifically, and I don't have anxiety around in-person communication. It's specifically digital communication. Now, it's going to be different for everybody. You might be watching this because you want some advice on how to deal with your communication anxiety that you experience. And you might be thinking, okay, well, your experience doesn't match with mine, Kellyanne, so this probably isn't the video for me. At the end of the video, I will talk about more general ways you can deal with communication anxiety, but I'll just talk about my story first, so you can use the little timestamps if you are just interested in getting to the tips. But I will explain my story, my symptoms, what's helped me, etc. So what I'm experiencing and what's helped me. So, but I'm looking to the side for my notes because I'm finding it a bit difficult to multitask this, to think about what needs to go in what pile clothing wise, and also what I'm thinking about, what I'm talking about. So I've got some notes off to the side as I knew this would happen. So some people get communication anxiety because they feel like communication has very high stakes to it. So they might feel like they're going to fail in their communication. They're going to look silly. Maybe they don't want to be the center of attention. Perhaps they are neurodivergent and struggle in social situations for that reason. Maybe they have speech difficulties for some other kind of reason. And so though the communication anxiety is around that, basically. Maybe they're experiencing depression. I definitely think that my experience of depression has an effect on the degree of communication anxiety I'm experiencing. For sure, those two things are linked because I'm not being the best and highest version of myself, right? I've got depression, so that will add to my feeling that I don't necessarily want to digitally communicate with people because I don't feel like myself. I do feel like myself. It's very me to have depression, unfortunately. I've dealt with it since I was a child, but I feel like I'd rather wait until I feel better before communicating. So that can also be a reason. I don't necessarily have an issue being the center of attention, obviously. And as you can see, I don't have an issue getting my point across, obviously. So it's not those things. For me, it seems to be about energy leakage. So it seems to be about feeling very precious about my energy and being incredibly scared that if I start entering into communication with people, my energy is going to be drained significantly. Or I'm going to burn out, or it's going to feel really uncomfortable and unpleasant, and I'm going to be just giving too much. So I become overly guarded and overly precious about my energy, and I just shut down communication. Oh, by the way, I can't believe I didn't say this at the beginning, but if you have any housework to do, you need to be doing it. That's the rule with Housework Ramble. You're supposed to be doing your housework too. So yeah, I think basically what I've written down here is that I have the feeling of leaking energy. It is worse when I'm depressed, which obviously makes sense because already you're using quite a lot more energy when you're depressed to just, deal with having a lowered ability to make decisions. You're dealing with difficult moods coming up sometimes very quickly. You're dealing with sometimes a sense of despair, so you're already using more energy on that as well as studying or working or whatever, raising your children. So, of course, the communication anxiety becomes worse then because communicating with people when you're dealing with all of those other things is hard. But for me, my communication anxiety is also very much related to how much communicating I've already done on that particular day. And with the job that I do as a spiritual counsellor and card slinger full time, that could be a great deal of quite intense communication. Now, do I love that communication? Do I love speaking to clients about their lives and their goals, etc.? Yeah, it's absolutely a fucking piece of me. I mean, it's what I most want to do with my day, with my world, with my life, and I can't imagine that being any different. But does it sort of take a certain amount of energy to do that I then feel is taken away from the energy I would put towards other forms of communication, like communicating with friends? Yeah, it takes it away, of course. There has to be a limit. I'm not magnanimous. I'm not Superwoman. I can't keep talking and listening and interacting and giving and stuff. So, of course, there's a toll that I pay. I love this t-shirt. Again, another charity shop special there. And I can't remember whether or not it needs washing. So let's not pretend we don't do this, guys. Yeah, that needs a little wash. Have you seen my hair? The humidity is really getting to my hair. Somebody asked me the other day how many extensions I put in, and I was like, bitch. No, not I. There's no extensions in here, honey bunnies. Okay, so my job makes it so that I might have more reluctance to communicating if I've had a particularly communicative day. I also believe that I get screen burnout. Now, this is something that I hadn't really thought about much until a client mentioned it to me. Thank you, client, for mentioning this to me. And they were kind of saying that they would be more tired doing what I do than doing what they do with face-to-face clientele because of the screen burnout. And I thought, that's interesting, because I would have thought negotiating and navigating people's energy in person would be the more tiring thing to do professionally. But they were saying that it's actually easier when you can get a handle on someone's energy in person. And I was thinking, okay, I actually think that they might be onto something and that I might need to think about that. So, yeah, I think that screen burnout can be an issue, and taking time away from the screen has therefore become increasingly important to me, because I've realised that that's part of it, and I can't deny that. I can't avoid that. Clean clothes are up there, yeah. Another way in which this communication anxiety that I experience is linked to my depression is in the sense that when I'm going through a depressive episode, I am less inclined to want to be somebody's performing circus act. In other words, I don't want to pretend that everything's great and I'm fine and I can just hold endless space for everybody and I feel amazing, and I'm not interested in putting on a show. And so sometimes my communication anxiety will be linked in with this feeling that if I talk to this person, I have to put my own needs on the back burner, or I have to be in a specific type of mood to speak to this person in order to appease their desired narrative that they want to hear coming from me. That's actually made me more discerning about who I speak to and who I give my energy to and my honesty to. That's actually a good thing for me about experiencing this communication anxiety in a way, because it's made me pull away from people that I can't be honest with, that when I have been honest and said, I feel like shit at the moment, you know, it's really a difficult time for me. If their response to me is something like, well, you need to pull yourself together, or you've got a defeatist attitude or whatever, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be giving that person as much access to me. They need to go away and do some basic reading about mental health and recognize that it's not the mental health that should be stigmatized. It's that kind of response. This is not about judgment. This is about discernment. I have been discerning more recently that I do not want to engage with people around whom I feel I need to put on a show. I can't say how I feel. I can't admit when being asked how I feel that I feel like crap on a stick. No, I'm going to fucking say that. I'm a human being and I should be allowed to say that. And if somebody has a response to that, that is really counterproductive, that's okay. They can work on that. But I'm not going to consistently take that from them. You know, they need to go away and figure out why it is that they behaved that way towards someone who was saying that they need help, or just that they feel crappy and there's nothing that can be done, but they just feel crappy. You know, I think people who have responses to that are cruel or unhelpful need to do some work on themselves, rather than, you know, when someone's in a depressive episode, like me, for example, just being like, I'm going to let that slide. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to still give that person the same amount of access to me, even though they've said something really quite hurtful when I've expressed the difficulties I'm going through. No, we need to stigmatize those responses. We need to make that into the stigma, so we can, well, not the stigma, but, you know, we need to make sure that those people understand that is not the right response. That's not okay. There's a number of different responses on the spectrum of responses that are appropriate for when someone's talking about mental health or emotional well-being concerns, and your response was not one of the ones that is on that spectrum. You know, I think that needs to be the thing that kids learn about in school. Kids should be learning about this in school. How you can respond if somebody says they're going through depression, they're bereaved, they've got anxiety, they're struggling with work. Like, what's the ways we can be responding to that? Jesus. As always, my darlings, I want to talk a little bit about things that have helped me. If I'm ever talking about anything to do with my own story, I don't want to just leave it at what's going wrong. I also want to talk about how I'm helping things to go a little bit more right. First things first, definitely an important one, and this is something I've said about depression as well, being fucking honest. Being honest, saying what is going on for me has been really important part of my work. As I just said, mental health stigma needs to fuck off. People need to feel an increasing amount of discomfort around untrue things they say about mental health, or unkind things they say about mental health, or towards people dealing with mental health stuff. So fuck mental health stigma. And one of the ways that we can really fuck it right up the jacksie is to talk about it, baby. Tell your story, baby. That's not a real song. I'm getting really comfy now. When you know that I just make up tunes on the spot, like Steve from American Dad, then yeah, I'm actually Steve from American Dad, to be fair, in a mask. All I do is cry and make up R&B songs. That's all I do. So when I'm not doing this, I do that. So yeah, I think talking about it, saying that that is an issue. I don't tolerate people who won't accept this explanation. And what I would say is, if you feel you need to say to someone or to a number of people, guys, this is going on with me right now, sit down and figure out the wording, figure out how you're going to explain it. I sat down and I wrote out a stock few sentences to send to a number of key people in my life via WhatsApp, where I just basically explained, honey bunnies, I'm dealing with communication anxiety. My communication might not be as long as it usually would be. It might not reply to every point, and it certainly is not going to be prompt. And it might be at a weird time of the night sometimes, maybe, but don't worry. Like, you don't have to worry about replying to me straight away. And I've also said to them, if you need me, call me. Call me. Don't blondie everyone. But if you need me, call me, right? But if it's just we're backing and forthing, you've asked some questions that are not particularly time sensitive or whatever, I might not reply. And if something is time sensitive and you need me to reply, call me. Call me any time. Call me. Blondie style. So yeah, this is something I sent to people in my life. I was like, yeah, I'm dealing with communication anxiety. It seems to be partly in response to what I do for a living, partly depression. There's a number of different things that have made it come into being, I think. But this is what's going on with me. You know, you can do that. So you might not feel like you're able to do that with everyone, and I get it. But that's something that's helped me a lot, communicating what the truth actually is. And if you feel like you don't get a favourable response, you don't get a kind response, call that person out, call that person in, cut ties, whatever the hell you got to do. I don't know. It depends what the situation is. It depends if it's the absolute last straw for you, and it was the message that you needed, that this person is just not someone you want to connect with anymore, or if it was an infraction in an otherwise reasonably clean record with somebody, then tell them, say that's not the response I was hoping for and it's hurt my feelings, or there's some things that you don't understand about what I've just said, and if you would take the time, I would like to explain it to you, or maybe you could look it up. Tracking my moods has been very useful. I've been tracking my moods. Whenever I use an app to track my moods, I will admit that I do not look back at the information, and so using apps is useless for me. I like to make an actual sort of graph, a table. It's a table, it's not a graph. If I remember, I'll show you a cutaway here, but if not, you will see it soon anyway, because I'm definitely going to be doing a video about paper planning in relation to mental health and emotional well-being and whatnot, so you'll see it then. But anyway, tracking my moods has really helped me. It helps me understand not just about communication anxiety and when that might be worsened, but also just in general, when do I feel better? What are the triggers for helping me to feel, what are the triggers that make me feel worse, or the helpful things that make me feel better? I was surprised by some of the information in this. I was surprised to learn, for example, that I get such an emotional high from being around other people. Considering I'm somebody who generally considers themselves to be very fond of solitude, I love spending time with people, but certainly not at the expense of being in solitude and recharging in solitude and coming back to myself. I consider that the sort of homecoming vibe and the type of vibe, you know. It's not being with others, it's being with me. But I was very surprised to find that I'm emotionally very, very fed, much more than I thought in terms of mood. My mood goes right up when I spend time with people. And then gradually, if I'm in a depressive episode, it declines throughout the following days where I'm not with people, and then it peaks again. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Very intriguing. And I checked, is this dependent on what I'm doing? Is it dependent on if I'm drinking or not? What is it dependent on? And really, it was just all forms of being with people. It doesn't matter if I'm partying or going around a gallery or what the fuck I'm doing. It's just being with people. So that was very interesting for me to know, you know. So you can get that kind of really nutritious information with tracking moods, and you can track specifically, you know, when your communication anxiety has been difficult, and look at what has been going on, what has been happening. Was it work days? Was it days you were with friends? Was it days where you were dealing with other issues physically or mentally that you have? What was happening? You know, you can compare that with what you ate, how you slept, you know, if you want to, if you went to the gym or not, you know, so you can really start to create a map. I know it might sound arduous to do these kinds of things, but good God and good good goddamn gravy, is it useful? It very much is useful. This is a piece of swimwear, and as such, it should be over yonder, because the weather has been shite, and so we haven't really been getting in the sea of late, which is kind of annoying. Never mind. Come on, summer, where are you? I try to listen to what my friends think would be a good idea for me, even if I don't necessarily think I'm going to take the advice, or I've already tried the advice, but they're kind of suggesting I roll back around to it, or they didn't know I tried it before. I try not to shut them down. I recognize that with things like communication anxiety, I can be very much a help rejecting complainer, where I just complain, but I don't necessarily take on the help. And I think that must be pretty exhausting for the people around me sometimes. And I think I should take things under advisement a bit more. I think that I should respect my friends on their authority to speak about what's going on with me, since, you know, they would know what the fuck is going on with me. They're my friends of X many years or whatever. So it's really about making sure that I'm taking advice from one of the counsels in my life that are the most at liberty to speak on what's happening with me. And I shouldn't shut those people down. Those people have a right to say if they think something would be unhelpful, or if they think I keep doing something that's unhelpful, or whatever, if they have an inspiration for what I could do. So I try to listen. So also earlier I mentioned that I have told my friends that if they need me, they should call me. They should get in touch and say, Kellyanne, I need you. And I will override my communication anxiety for them. So even if I have been distant with communication, I will override that to speak to them if they require me. Now, one thing that's been really helpful for me is recognizing that if I can override it for other people when they are in need of me, then I should be able to override it for myself, because I am indeed a person that I care about in my life. And that's always the attitude that I'm trying to cultivate, is that I am a loved one of myself, right? I am an important person in my life. So when I feel like I need human contact, and it's not all the time, but sometimes, like anyone, I need to speak with somebody, I feel the need for company, I feel the need to talk on the phone or whatever, or message on WhatsApp. If I need to reach out, I try to override the anxiety for me in the same way as I would override it for somebody in my life if they needed to speak to me and I saw them calling, or they messaged me and said, do you mind if I ask you about this? Do you mind if you can help me with this? I'm worried about it. I try to always do my very best to still be there for that person. And I'm not saying everybody should do that. I think I'm quite driven by a strong sense of purpose and mission. So if I'm needed for something and somebody says exactly what role I'm going to be playing on that particular battlefield, I will start to get suited and booted in my chainmail for the art of war, because I'm a Sagittarius, all right? I'm a Sagittarius with a Virgo moon. I'm very motivated by purpose. So you might be able to temporarily lift me out of something by saying, can you help me with this thing, Kellyanne, that I know you'd be really good at helping me with? I will definitely override my own sort of like red light communication anxiety, can't go there, can't talk to anyone. And so if I can do it for other people, I should be able to do it for me if I really do need to communicate and I need to reach out. So I try and think about that, you know, I try and make sure that that's something that I let myself have. I'm always trying to acknowledge whereabouts I waste my energy. So, for example, I don't get involved in Facebook debates. If I've got communication anxiety and I struggle to answer my own mother's messages, why the fuck would I be involved in a 50-comment Facebook debate about politics? It doesn't make any sense. That is a mismatched and misaligned sense of what is actually the priority. So that's a short and sweet piece of advice right there, darlings, is just basically acknowledge where you're wasting your energy and may therefore have less energy available for fruitful interactions, meaningful interactions, the interactions that you want to have with people. You know, just be honest with yourself about that and pull away when you recognize, like, okay, I'm actually putting quite a lot of life force into this totally pretty much meaningless thing, like meaningless on a scale, meaningless compared to being able to have a chat with my son or my mother or my whatever. I'd rather do that. I'd rather actually take that energy and reroute it, you know. And that, to me, that's part of the art of magic. To me, that's part of that. That's a witchy response, is to be like, hang on a minute, where would this energy be better used? Am I channeling this correctly? Is it going the quickest possible route? Am I diluting it until it's not my most potent energy anymore? And if so, why would I do that when I have big plans for this energy? I have things I would like to do with this energy. So I don't like to piss energy up the wall if I can help it. Part of that whole philosophy of energy management online is not only not taking part in massive debates that kind of just go round in circles or whatever, but I'm just not going to take part in a debate even with one person if I can tell that they are not open to hearing me at all. They're not even replying to any of my points. Everything I've said, they've not come back with anything that's to do with that. They've gone for the ad hominem attacks. So they've gone straight into like, you're the type of person who the only thing you're thinking about is this, and it's like, let's stick to the actual topic at hand. I won't with that either. It's just like, I might as well piss my life force into the toilet and flush the fucking chain. And why would I do that when I already have issues with directing my life force appropriately in terms of communicating and interacting? No, I'm not doing this. So please feel at liberty to get as sassy as I just got when it comes to things where it's like, you want all this energy, and you're not even listening. No, we're not doing that. In the end, the thing that's helped me is recognizing the difference between feeling unable to communicate but really wanting to, and actually not fucking wanting to, and that being okay. That's okay. That's not my communication anxiety. That's just me being discerning about where I actually want to place my energy with communication. And that's okay. So that's helped me. And it's also helped me to apologise for the inconvenience with anyone who I would like to interact with, but my communication anxiety has gotten in the way. And if that's you, if you're watching this and you feel like that is you, that you have waited a very long time for me to answer a client query, for example, or, that you have, that I've said I'll communicate with you again and then I haven't, and you've been waiting on my response, or we were interacting and having a conversation and I just dropped out of it. I am sorry. And it really is nothing personal. It really is nothing personal. So it does help me as well to be able to apologise for the inconvenience. Don't worry, guys, I'm not flogging myself. There's so many people that aren't English that I've noticed that are like, why are the English always just like self-flagellating with sorry? It's like, you know what? We're very nuanced about sorry. It means different things in different situations. It does not always mean that we want to like prostrate ourselves in front of you for a whipping. Sometimes it just means that we genuinely are sorry if it's caused any inconvenience. Like, as in, I didn't want to be a part of that. It was not something I did with malicious intent. I did not intend to bring inconvenience to your door. Thank you for understanding, So don't worry, I'm not going into self-loathing there by saying sorry. Let me talk a little bit now about things that could help you if you're struggling with communication anxiety, either in-person communication, it could be electronic communication, it could be, the two of them combined. It could be that you have anxiety when it comes to communication about specific topics, maybe, that kind of stuff. But just basically you get that sort of anxious flutter and the sort of cortisol release when anticipating communication, or maybe being actually in the midst of communicating, in the act of communicating. So everything I already mentioned in part 2, that's what helps me, that could also help you, but you might be experiencing it very differently to me. So let me sort of give you some other ideas. Come on, this is my favorite jumper of all time. Fave jumper of all time. Just cut them up like regular chickens, you know what I mean? If you know, you know. Okay, so how does your communication anxiety, or your worry around communication, if you don't want to call it anxiety, but you do have problems with it, how does it come up for you? How does it show up? Does anything trigger it necessarily? Because I think when you look at that, that's where you start to make the map of what is going on with you with that, and therefore what can help you to lessen it. So I think that's helpful. If it's triggered by communication with a specific person, do you need to take some distance from that person? Or do you need to create some boundaries or some rules which can be communicated verbally or non-verbally with that person? If you know that your your communication anxiety is triggered by talking about a specific topic, for example, religion or politics, again, if it's with a specific person or a specific number of people in your life that tends to happen, do you need to say, that topic's off the table for me right now? I'm just not into it, no offense, but let's change the subject. And then if that person or people refuse to do that, taking action as you feel is necessary. If it's online that you tend to be involved in discussions around religion or politics or whatever it is that makes you feel anxious, stop being involved in those conversations. That's down to you. You know, that's you making a boundary or creating a rule with yourself for your own betterment and well-being. Darlings, I might actually end up having a clothes avalanche in a minute, Mighty Boosh style. I'm looking at the teetering tower of sweaters and being like, oh. And if it falls this way, it's going to knock my phone over and it's going to be pandemonium. It can be helpful to have some topics in advance in communication that you feel are safe topics, things you can talk about, or things you can listen to the other person talk about. And it feels like, yeah, that feels good, you know? So make a list of your safe topics. Practice certain sentences that you can use to instigate a conversation about those topics in advance. If you know what other people are going to be talking about and you're worried about those topics of conversation, you don't know how well you're going to do on those topics of conversation, and you don't want to fall over your words or whatever it might be, again, practice some sentences, practice some stock answers. There is nothing fake about or like disingenuous about having tools for yourself so that you can be more engaged with the world, so that it will help you if you have certain things that you can just go to and you think, that's what I'm going to say, that's a safe sort of area for me, I can do that, it's still going to be a challenge but it's not going to be impossible, and it's going to allow me to go to this birthday party, it's going to allow me to be involved in this Zoom call with these family members I haven't spoken to for ages, it's going to allow me to go to the work meeting, it's going to allow me to attend my sports event that I want to attend, right? There's nothing bad about practicing what you would say, practicing how you will respond, you know, and also practice pace. I think a lot of communication anxiety is around worry that your pace is going to be on the back foot. In other words, you have to match the pace of the other person. And that's something that I think happens quite a bit. Practice setting a slower pace and expecting patience and engagement from the other person in return. One way that you can do this that I think is quite useful is by sipping some water, sipping a drink, having a drink with you, and slowly just sipping as you talk back and forth to the person, whether they're online or whether they're right, you know, opposite you, whatever. You know, try slowing the pace by doing that. Another thing, something I've seen Danielle Laporte do in interviews. I used to watch quite a few interviews with Danielle Laporte, and I remember when she was asked questions, and this was something that really stuck with me, and it's something that I've noticed other people do since then in interviews. She would take quite a long time to answer sometimes. She would never be in a hurry to be like, oh, I've got to get my words together for this journalist, for this interviewer. She would, like, someone would ask her a question and she'd go, that's juicy. And like literally, it's like the decadence of that pace. The decadence of a pace. Yes, I love it. I love it. She was just like, wait a minute. The words are coming. I'm gathering them together. I want to be sacred about this. I loved that. I was like, I should do that. If I don't quite know yet, what's wrong with the dead air? Why do we need the air to curve all the time? You know, it's just leave it. Let it have what it needs. Let yourself have what you need. The air doesn't need anything. Well, it does. But I'm not getting into this. Isn't a science video, guys. But yeah, so set the pace, slow the pace. If you notice that you're like trying to keep up, or you're worried about what you're going to say next, you try actually bringing the power of pace over to you and letting the other person mirror you. One thing I want to say is that if somebody is interrupting you a lot, or they are not waiting for you to answer the questions, or they are being irritable with you, then in certain situations you may feel comfortable to actually ask them to back up, or to slow down, or to repeat themselves, or to let you repeat yourself because they didn't understand or whatever. When I had a lot of issues with my back injury, there was about 5 years there in my life where I was on a lot of medication, and it slows down your speech. Now when I take strong medication, it slows down my speech. And I remember, I have a very distinct memory of being at a train station and somebody trying to explain to me about the changes to the trains and when I would need to get on a replacement bus and whatever. And they were speaking too quickly. And when I asked them to ask them a question, I was speaking quite slowly, and they went, "I'll just take it from the top. So if you do this," and I was like, "I'm sorry, I understood all of it up till this point. If you could just go slowly, I'm on quite strong medication. I can understand you, but it will take me a while to listen and respond." And they were just like, they immediately were pulled out of their behavior, like, "Oh, of course, some people are on strong medication. Some people are dealing with fresh bereavement. Some people have autism." So like, I could see the light bulb going off in their head, like, "Oh, I am being kind of a dick and I'm railroading you. Let me not do that," you know. I remember once when I was working in the chemist, when I was like, years ago, I've just got this memory to mind now. I was going through some numbers, phone numbers that this person could call for emergency treatment for something, and they were writing them down, and I was like, 07939 247 892, and they were like, "Can you repeat that again?" And I went, 07939, and they went, sorry, I have massive issues with numbers, can you just go very slowly?" And I was like, "Oh, of course, yeah, sorry, 07," like, watch them write it down. And that was so sobering and wonderful, as has been all the times that I've been with friends or loved ones or around people who need that space and that slower pace, not to be rushed. You know, I spend a lot of time with a loved one who has autism. He's my best fucking friend. And I've spent time with others who have got ADHD. They experience neurodivergence. They're experiencing other kinds of issues. They are on medication. I've been that way and been through that. And every time it's a sacred fucking reminder. There's nothing wrong with you giving that to someone else if you feel like they're doing something that's actually putting a lot of pressure on you in communication and is not helpful to you. I know it's not always possible to do this, and I know it's not always easy to do this, but I bet you can find a time between now and the end of the year when you can say, "Sorry, can you do it this way? I've got autism. You know, it's more helpful for me this way. Sorry, can you take your hand away from your mouth? I'm actually partially deaf. I'm lip reading a little bit." Don't suffer in silence. Or you know what? Don't give a justification. Sometimes that can be the right way. You know, you don't always have to say. You can just say, "Sorry, can you slow down?" But for me, it felt more comfortable for me to say, "Can you slow down? I'm on medication, so I'll speak slowly and I listen a bit more slowly," or whatever. That felt really good for me to just be like, yeah, I'm allowed to be on strong pain meds. I'm allowed to say that this is not the nature of communication that's going to be easy for me. Can we relax? You know, a lot of people in your life do want to know what they can do to help you. You know, it's not always the case, as I said earlier when I was talking about opening up to people and their responses and whatnot. It's not always the case that people want to know what they can do to help you. Sometimes people are going to fucking hinder you and they're not even going to care once they've done it. That's life, honey bunnies, you know. Not everybody's on our side. But there probably are situations where people would love to know if they can do something that's going to make it more relaxing for you or more chill for you, you know. So take that opportunity. Other things I'm going to say, obviously, all of this shit, all of this makes all the difference, all right? So your spiritual work matters. My spiritual work that I do, it really matters. It's helpful to me. You know, so I chant. That's an amazing way of getting connected with, you know, everything that is symbolized by the throat chakra kind of energy. I use talismans. I use power jewelry. That's really helpful for me with communication anxiety online. If I put on my power jewelry and I spend some time at my altar, I look into the mirror and I say words of power, all of that stuff. Get a candle, dedicate it to healing and dealing when it comes to your communication anxiety. Light that candle, gaze at that flame, say those words of power, whisper over that fire, manifest that goodness. You know, so all of the spiritual stuff, very good. Body scan meditations, relaxation meditations, baths, massages, all those things might have a really lovely effect on your communication anxiety. If you've got tension, if you've got a lot of cortisol running around the body, work out, move the body, you know, those kinds of things. Even some gentle stretching can get that blood flowing. It can give you a use for that adrenaline. I know adrenaline and cortisol are different things, but again, I'm not a scientist, darlings, for God's sake, okay? I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, I think that can be useful too. And one of the most important things with communication anxiety is bookend your times of interaction with self-care activities and self-honoring. So what I mean by bookend it is literally bookends. So before you engage in communication, make sure that you engage in self-care. Love yourself, nurture yourself, do the spiritual work for yourself, give yourself good food, try and get enough sleep, you know, take less screen time, she says, with the size of this video. But I know a lot of you are going to be doing things, your own housework and whatnot. So definitely bookend it that side before you engage. And then after you've engaged, after you've had the interaction, self-honor. Honor your efforts, take credit for your efforts, wind down, relax, simmer, do something lovely for yourself, reconnect with yourself. And hopefully all of these tips and tricks and the story of my own story has been useful. I hope you got some housework done. If you did, let me know down below, what housework did you get done? Tell me what you managed to achieve during this. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my story and understand more about what you might be able to do, either if you've got some difficult feelings around communication, or if you know someone who does, you can be of more service to them. If you would like to talk to me one-on-one, you can book me for a spiritual counselling session. You can also book me for readings. There's lots of different reading options. I'm going to leave the link to my online store down below so you can go and have a browse. Much love, darlings. Until next time, and blessed be.